My name is Catalina Martinez, and 4 months ago, I watched my manager destroy what she believed was just a poorly executed technical presentation. She stood in front of the board of directors, announced that my 2 years of research and development were useless garbage, and then pressed delete, while 50 executives watched in silence. What she really erased was the project that was about to revolutionize our industry. And when my phone buzzed 90 seconds later with an offer that would change my life forever, I realized she had just handed me the keys to the kingdom she thought she was protecting. Before I tell you exactly how her arrogance became the most costly decision in Omega Systems history, could you take a moment to like this video and subscribe? Because what I'm about to share will show you how an act of corporate cruelty can backfire in ways that seem impossible, until they happen in front of a room full of witnesses. And trust me, you need to hear every detail of how an underestimated woman became the youngest CEO of a multinational corporation. Let me take you to where it all really began, because corporate revenge stories always start long before the public humiliation occurs. 3 years ago, I joined Omega Systems as a senior product development engineer. On paper, it sounded prestigious, designing innovative technology solutions for the banking sector, working with the best minds in the industry, being part of a company that boasted about defining the future of digital finance. The reality was more complex. Omega Systems was one of those companies that had grown too fast, where traditional hierarchies constantly clashed with the needs for real innovation. My direct boss, Veronica Sanchez, was a perfect example of that cultural clash. She had reached her position as innovation director through internal political connections, not technical merit, and felt constantly threatened by any employee who demonstrated real understanding of the technology she supposedly managed. From my first day, Veronica made it clear that she considered my previous experience in tech startups as irrelevant to the real corporate world. I had worked 5 years developing machine learning algorithms for emerging fintech companies, had led development teams that created platforms used by millions of users, had been recognized at international conferences for my contributions to digital banking. But to Veronica, all of that was nothing more than toy experience compared to the prestige of working for an established corporation. In my first months, she assigned me projects that frankly were below my competence level. Legacy system maintenance, documentation of existing processes, code review written by other developers. Every time I proposed improvements or suggested implementing more advanced technologies, I received the same response. Catalina, you need to understand how things work here before trying to change them. But I hadn't accepted a significant salary cut to leave the startup world and do system maintenance. I had come to Omega because I believed in its potential to revolutionize traditional banking, and I was determined to contribute to that revolution, with or without Veronica's enthusiasm. It was during a brainstorming meeting about new technological directions that I saw the opportunity I was looking for. The CEO, Roberto Mendoza, had casually mentioned that the company needed to find ways to differentiate itself in an increasingly competitive market. Traditional banks were losing young customers to fintech companies, and Omega needed something revolutionary to stay relevant. What if we could predict customers' financial needs before they even recognize them themselves? I asked during that meeting. What if we could use artificial intelligence to anticipate when someone will need a loan, when they'll be ready to invest, or when they might be at risk of default? The room fell silent. Roberto leaned forward, clearly intrigued. Is that technically possible? Not only is it possible, I responded, it's inevitable. Banks that don't implement predictive artificial intelligence in the next 3 years are going to become obsolete. The data is there, the technology exists, we just need someone who understands how to connect the dots. I saw how Veronica tensed in her seat. She had spent the entire meeting contributing vague ideas about improving user experience and optimizing existing processes, and suddenly her subordinate had captured the CEO's complete attention with a concrete and ambitious vision. Prepare a proposal, Roberto said. I want to see numbers, timelines, necessary resources. If this is as promising as it sounds, we could be talking about our flagship project for next year. I left that meeting with a mixture of excitement and terror. I had just proposed something that could transform the entire banking industry, but I also knew that Veronica wasn't going to allow one of her inexperienced subordinates to lead the company's most important project. The following 6 months were the most intense of my professional career. I worked 12 hours daily developing algorithms, analyzing data patterns, building predictive models that could identify financial behaviors with almost supernatural precision. I hired external consultants specialized in AI, established partnerships with universities to access cutting-edge research, even connected with some of my old startup connections to validate my concepts. The system I developed, which I called Financial Oracle, could predict with 94% accuracy when a customer would be ready to apply for a mortgage loan, with 87% accuracy when someone would enter financial difficulties, and with 91% accuracy which financial products would be most attractive to each individual at any given moment. But the most impressive thing wasn't the predictions, but how the system could completely personalize the banking experience. Instead of offering generic products, each customer would receive offers perfectly adapted to their current financial situation and future needs. It was like having a personal financial advisor who knew your life better than you did. Throughout this process, Veronica maintained an attitude that I can only describe as subtle sabotage. She questioned every decision, required exhaustive documentation for every expense, insisted on weekly reviews that lasted hours, and seemed designed more to interfere with my work than to support it. When I managed to get a meeting with IBM's development team to discuss advanced software licenses, she told me I didn't have authority to represent the company in external negotiations and canceled the meeting. When the first test results demonstrated that the system worked better than expected, instead of celebrating, Veronica expressed concerns about the unnecessary complexity of the project. Customers want simplicity, she insisted. All this artificial intelligence sounds impressive, but does it really add value, or is it just complicating processes that already work? But I had done my homework. I had prepared irrefutable data about how predictive personalization increased customer retention, increased revenue per customer, and significantly reduced acquisition costs. Every metric I had measured showed that Financial Oracle wasn't just innovative, but potentially the most profitable development in the company's history. After 18 months of development, Roberto scheduled a formal presentation to the board of directors. It would be the opportunity to demonstrate that my system wasn't just impressive technology, but a competitive advantage that could define Omega Systems' future. I spent 3 weeks preparing that presentation. Every slide was meticulously designed to show not only how the system worked, but how it would transform customer experience and the company's financial results. I had specific use cases, conservative and optimistic revenue projections, comparative analysis with competitors, testimonials from beta tests we had conducted with select customers. The presentation consisted of 47 slides that told a coherent story. The banking industry was at a crossroads. Customers expected increasingly personalized experiences, and Financial Oracle was the answer that would position Omega as the undisputed leader in future banking. But 24 hours before the presentation, Veronica summoned me to her office for a final review. What followed was 2 hours of devastating criticism that seemed designed to destroy my confidence. "This is too complex for an executive presentation," she began, scrolling through my slides with an expression of disgust. "Board members aren't technical. They won't understand all these references to algorithms and machine learning." "I've included explanations in simple language for every technical concept," I responded, "and the results speak for themselves. The metrics are clear regardless of the underlying technical complexity." "The metrics are speculative," she replied. "You're promising results based on limited tests. What if the system doesn't work at scale? What if customers reject so much personalization? What if competitors are already developing something similar?" Each question was valid in theory, but the way she formulated them revealed that she wasn't trying to improve the presentation, but to plant seeds of doubt about the entire project. "Veronica," I said finally, "I've spent 2 years developing this system. I've validated every assumption, tested every algorithm, documented every result. The data completely supports the projections I'm presenting. Data that you have selected, she corrected me. The reality is that this project has consumed enormous resources without generating real revenue. And now you want the board of directors to approve a millionaire investment based on what is essentially a sophisticated prototype. I left that meeting with a knot in my stomach. I had expected support, or at least professional neutrality. Instead, I had received a demolition session that seemed designed to sabotage my presentation before it began. But I had worked too hard to allow Veronica's insecurities to destroy what I knew was a transformative project. That night, I reviewed every slide again, practiced my presentation until I memorized it, and prepared for the most important moment of my professional career. The morning of the presentation, I arrived at the office 2 hours early to set up the equipment and review my final notes. The boardroom was full. Roberto Mendoza, the 6 board members, 3 vice presidents, and Veronica, who had strategically positioned herself in the front row with an expression that could have frozen hell. "Good morning," I began, my voice firm despite the nerves. "Today, I want to share with you the most important development in Omega Systems history, an artificial intelligence system that not only predicts our customers' financial needs, but completely personalizes their banking experience." The first 15 minutes were perfect. I explained the market context, the limitations of current systems, and how predictive personalization represented the inevitable future of banking. Board members asked intelligent questions. Roberto took enthusiastic notes, and I could feel the room's energy as they understood the implications of what I was proposing. Then I reached the demonstration of the system in action. I had prepared 3 specific use cases that showed how Financial Oracle analyzed real customer behavior and generated personalized recommendations that had resulted in significant revenue increases. "As you can see," I said, pointing to the graphs on the screen, "when we applied predictive personalization to the premium customer portfolio, revenue per customer increased 34% in 6 months. More importantly, customer satisfaction reached record levels because for the first time, we're offering products they actually need at the exact moment they need them." It was at that moment that Veronica decided to attack. "Sorry," she interrupted, raising her hand as if she were a student in class. "I think we need to address some fundamental concerns about this project before continuing." I was paralyzed. In 15 years of professional career, I had never seen a manager interrupt their own employee's presentation in front of the board of directors. But there was Veronica, preparing for what she had clearly planned as a public ambush. "Continue, Catalina," Roberto said, clearly uncomfortable with the interruption, but not wanting to create an open conflict. "Actually," Veronica continued, standing up, "I think it would be more productive if I provided context about the real challenges we've faced with this project." What followed was 10 minutes of calculated professional humiliation. Veronica proceeded to systematically dismantle every aspect of my work, characterizing 2 years of development as costly experimentation without clear commercial results. "While Catalina's presentation is impressive from a technical perspective," she said, walking toward the screen where my results graphs were displayed, "the reality is that we've spent almost $800,000 on a system that essentially does what our data analysts can already do manually." "That's not true," I interrupted, but she continued as if I hadn't spoken. "The predictions shown here are based on limited data sets and controlled conditions that don't reflect real market complexity. We've seen too many promising technology projects that fail when faced with operational reality." I could feel how the room's atmosphere changed. Board members, who had been enthusiastic minutes before, now seemed confused and concerned. Roberto looked at me with an expression I couldn't interpret. "Furthermore," Veronica continued, "there's a real concern about whether this level of personalization doesn't violate customers' privacy expectations. We're talking about a system that knows more about people's finances than they do themselves. Do we really want that responsibility?" Every word was carefully chosen to plant doubts without making direct accusations. It was professional sabotage executed with surgical precision. "Veronica," I said, trying to maintain composure, I think there are some misunderstandings about the project that I can clarify. Of course, she responded with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. But first, I think the board should see the complete project evaluation I prepared. Without asking my opinion, she approached the computer where my presentation was and began navigating to what was clearly her own file folder. I've documented all the concerns I've expressed during the project's development, she announced, including cost overruns, schedule delays, and technical problems that Catalina has minimized in her presentation. I watched as my slides disappeared from the screen, replaced by a document titled Critical Evaluation, Financial Oracle Project. It was clear she had been preparing this ambush for weeks, maybe months. As you can see, she said, pointing to an expense table, project costs have exceeded original estimates by 60%. Schedules have been repeatedly extended, and we still don't have a product that can be implemented at commercial scale. That information is completely out of context, I protested. Cost overruns were due to scope expansions that were approved by management, and delays were caused by bureaucratic restrictions, not technical problems. Catalina, Roberto said with a voice indicating he was losing patience. Can you explain specifically why we should invest another $2 million in this project when we've already spent so much without clear results? It was at that moment that I understood what was really happening. Veronica had turned my presentation into a trial, and I was being forced to defend not only my project, but my professional competence in front of the company's most important executives. The results aren't speculations, I said, trying to regain control of the situation. They're measurable data from real tests with real customers. The system has demonstrated it can increase revenue, improve customer satisfaction, and provide a sustainable competitive advantage. Selective data, Veronica corrected. Any competent developer can manipulate metrics to appear favorable during limited tests. The question is whether this system will work when it faces real-world challenges. So what's your recommendation? Roberto asked. Veronica took a deep breath, as if she were carefully considering her response. But I knew she had been waiting for this question throughout the entire presentation. I think we need to suspend this project and reassign resources to more realistic initiatives, she said. We've invested too much time and money in what is essentially an academic experiment. It's time to focus our efforts on incremental improvements that we know work. The silence that followed was devastating. I could see how board members processed Veronica's recommendation while evaluating 2 years of my work as a costly failure. What do you recommend we do with the work that's already been developed? Asked one of the board members. Honestly, Veronica responded, walking toward the computer, I think we should start from scratch with a more pragmatic approach. This project has so many fundamental problems that it would be more efficient to start with a blank slate. And then she did something I'll never forget. She approached the computer where my 2 years of work was stored, navigated to the project's main folder, and put her cursor over the delete option. What I'm going to do, she announced, is delete this project from our systems so we can start with a fresh perspective. Wait, I said, standing up from my chair. You can't just erase 2 years of development without formal authorization. As innovation director, she responded, I have the authority to manage the technological resources of my department, and this project has consumed too many resources without generating real value. Veronica, Roberto intervened, maybe we should discuss this privately before making irreversible decisions. No, she responded, with her hand still on the mouse. I think it's important that everyone sees exactly what we're eliminating. This folder contains 2 years of work that has cost $800,000 without producing a single commercializable product. I watched as she selected the entire project folder. 2 years of code, algorithms, documentation, tests, results, research, contacts, partnerships, everything I had built to revolutionize predictive banking. This, she said, is garbage that's preventing us from focusing on real solutions. And then she clicked delete. I watched my work disappear from the screen while 50 executives observed in silence. 2 years of sleepless nights, lost weekends, meetings with consultants, development sprints, beta tests, algorithm validation, all erased in a moment of professional revenge. Veronica stepped away from the computer with an expression of satisfaction, clearly expecting me to accept this humiliation and apologize for having wasted the company's resources. But she had made a devastating miscalculation. While destroying my work, she hadn't considered that other people might have been paying attention to what was happening at Omega Systems. My phone started buzzing before she finished logging out. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize, but the prefix was international. I left the conference room without saying a word, with hands shaking from adrenaline and humiliation. "Catalina Martinez," said a professional voice on the other end of the line. "This is Thomas Chen, Executive Director of Global Banking Innovation. We've been following your work in predictive artificial intelligence, and we need to talk urgently." The conversation that followed would change my life forever. "We know what just happened in your presentation," Thomas continued. "We have contacts at Omega Systems who informed us about the Financial Oracle project months ago. We've been waiting for the right moment to approach you. GBI was one of the world's most prestigious technology consulting firms specialized in digital transformation for financial institutions. They worked with central banks, Wall Street investment firms, and finance ministries of entire countries. We're prepared to offer you a position as Executive Director of Predictive Artificial Intelligence," Thomas said. "Base salary of $2.4 million annually, plus performance bonuses, equity participation, and an initial budget of $50 million to develop exactly the vision we know you have about the future of personalized banking. $2.4 million, more than 5 times my current salary. But most importantly wasn't the money, but the recognition that my work wasn't useless garbage, but the foundation to revolutionize an entire industry. We have a specific proposal," Thomas continued. "We want you to rebuild and expand the financial Oracle system, but this time with unlimited resources and total autonomy over technical decisions. Our clients are desperate for the type of predictive personalization you developed." "How do you know so much about my project?" I asked. "Catalina," Thomas responded, with a laugh that sounded slightly amused. "The financial technology industry is smaller than you think. When someone develops something truly innovative, people notice. We've been following your work for 1.5 years, waiting for Omega Systems to not know how to value what they had." The irony was devastating. While Veronica was destroying my work in front of the board of directors, world-class executives had been planning to offer me the opportunity of my life to do exactly what she considered useless. "We need a quick response," Thomas continued. "We have a meeting scheduled with the European Central Bank next week to discuss predictive AI implementation in monetary policies. We want you to lead that presentation. The European Central Bank, monetary policies, continental-scale implementation. Everything I had dreamed about the impact artificial intelligence could have on global finance, and they were offering it to me on a silver platter. I accept," I said, without hesitating for a second. "Excellent," Thomas responded. "Our legal team will contact you today to finalize contract details. Welcome to Global Banking Innovation, Director Martinez." When I returned to the conference room, the board meeting had ended. Veronica was conversing with Roberto near the blank screen where my presentation had been, probably explaining how she had saved the company from a costly investment. "Do you have any questions about our next directions?" she asked when she noticed my return. I looked around the room at the executives who had watched her destroy my work, then at the empty screen where my presentation had been, then back at Veronica's expectant expression. "Actually," I said, "I have something to announce. I resign from Omega Systems, effective immediately," I declared, my voice firm and clear. "I'm joining Global Banking Innovation as their new Executive Director of Predictive Artificial Intelligence." Veronica's expression instantly changed from satisfaction to confusion, and then to something that looked like genuine panic. "You can't just quit in the middle of a project crisis," she stammered. "There are responsibilities, transitions, documentation that needs to be transferred." "What documentation?" I asked, pointing to the empty screen. "The one you just deleted?" Roberto approached, clearly alarmed by this unexpected turn. "Catalina, maybe we should discuss this privately. I'm sure we can find a way to move forward with the project." "There's nothing to discuss," I responded, taking out my phone to show the contract I had just received. GBI understood the value of the work you just eliminated. They've offered me the resources and autonomy to develop exactly the vision you considered useless garbage. The silence that followed was absolute. I could see how Roberto processed the implications of losing not only his main AI developer, but potentially the company's most innovative project. "How much are they offering you?" he asked, with a voice suggesting he was prepared to make a counteroffer. "Enough," I responded. "But most importantly, they're offering me the opportunity to work with people who value real innovation, not with managers who destroy 2 years of work out of professional insecurity." Veronica approached, her face red with anger and humiliation. "You're making a huge mistake. GBI is known for promising a lot and not delivering. You're throwing away your career for a fantasy." "We'll see," I responded, collecting my personal belongings. "But at least this fantasy allows me to work with people who recognize the value of real innovation." As I left the conference room, I could hear Roberto beginning to interrogate Veronica about the true potential of the project she had just destroyed. The questions he was asking were exactly the ones I had been waiting for during 2 years. Why hadn't he been informed about GBI's interest? How had they allowed a competitor to identify the value of an internal project? Why had the presentation been sabotaged instead of improved? 6 months later, the meteoric rise. My transition to global banking innovation was like waking up from a corporate nightmare. On the first day, Thomas Chen introduced me to a team of 15 senior developers specialized in financial machine learning, each with more experience and enthusiasm than the entire innovation department at Omega Systems. "Your only objective," Thomas told the team, "is to make Catalina's vision a reality. No budget restrictions, no political interference, no bureaucracy. Just results." In 90 days, we had completely rebuilt the financial oracle system, but this time it was 10 times more powerful. The new algorithms could predict financial behaviors with 97% accuracy, personalize experiences for portfolios of millions of customers, and dynamically adapt to market changes in real time. The European Central Bank not only adopted our technology, but made it the basis of their new financial inclusion policies. 3 Asian central banks immediately followed. In 6 months, the system Veronica had called useless garbage was being used to manage monetary policies affecting 800 million people. The day that changed everything. It was a Tuesday morning when I received the call I had been waiting for without knowing it. "Catalina, this is Margaret Williams, president of Omega Systems Board of Directors," said an authoritative but clearly nervous voice. "We need to talk urgently." Omega Systems was in crisis. After my departure, 3 of their most important clients had canceled contracts due to lack of technological innovation. The competition had begun implementing predictive personalization systems, leaving Omega with obsolete technology. The company's stock had fallen 34% in 6 months. "We've made a serious mistake," Margaret continued. "We want to offer you to return as Chief Technology Officer, with total authority over all technical decisions and a salary of $1.8 million annually." "What happened to Veronica?" I asked, though I think I already knew the answer. "Veronica is no longer with the company," Margaret responded diplomatically. "Her decisions regarding your project were recognized as significant strategic errors. The proposal that would change everything." "I have a counter-proposal," I said after a long silence. "GBI is considering acquiring financial technology companies to expand our reach. Omega Systems could be an interesting acquisition, under the right conditions." The silence on the other end of the line was absolute. "Are you suggesting that GBI buy Omega Systems?" Margaret asked, with a voice indicating she was processing implications she hadn't considered. "I'm suggesting that GBI might be interested in Omega's technological assets, particularly its customer base and existing infrastructure," I responded. "Of course, we would have to do a complete evaluation of the company's real value." 3 months later, the acquisition GBI's offer was generous but not spectacular. $340 million for a company that had been valued at $800 million just a year before. The drop in value was directly due to lost contracts, lack of innovation, and the departure of key talent. Margaret and the board of directors didn't have many options. They accepted the offer. As part of the transition, I was named CEO of the new subsidiary Omega Digital, with responsibility for completely transforming the acquired company. The first day as CEO walking through Omega Systems offices as CEO was surreal. The same hallways where I had been publicly humiliated, I now walked with total authority over every strategic decision. My first meeting was with the development team that remained after the crisis. They were 5 junior developers, clearly nervous and confused about what the new direction expected. "I want you to know," I told them, "that you're going to be part of something revolutionary. We're going to turn this company into the world leader in financial artificial intelligence. But for that, we need to make some fundamental changes." The first change was hiring 25 senior developers, doubling the existing team's salaries, and establishing a research and development budget of $100 million annually. The second change was implementing the financial oracle system, now in version 3.0, across Omega Digital's entire platform. The final encounter. 6 months after becoming CEO, I was reviewing quarterly reports when my assistant informed me that someone had requested a meeting with me. "Veronica Sanchez says it's urgent," Julia, my executive assistant, announced. "She's in the lobby." After everything that had happened, Veronica had come to see me. Part of me wanted to reject the meeting, but curiosity was stronger. When she entered my office, she looked different. Less arrogant, more tired. She had lost the air of superiority that had characterized each of our previous interactions. "Catalina," she began, unable to maintain direct eye contact, "I wanted to apologize for what happened. I made a huge mistake by not recognizing the value of your work." "A mistake?" I repeated, leaning back in my chair. "Destroying 2 years of your own employees' work in front of the board of directors was a mistake?" I was afraid," she admitted. "Your project was brilliant, and I knew that if it succeeded, my position would be questioned. I acted out of insecurity, not professional judgment." "And what do you want now?" I asked. "Work," she responded simply. "I've been unemployed for 8 months. No one in the industry wants to hire the manager who destroyed the most innovative AI project in the sector. My reputation is ruined." I looked at the woman who had tried to destroy my career, now asking me to save her from the consequences of her own decisions. "I have a proposal," I said finally. "Omega Digital is expanding rapidly. We need people who understand the mistakes that can be made in innovation management. We could use a consultant in what not to do when directing a development team." "Are you offering me work?" she asked with incredulity. "I'm offering you the opportunity to contribute to fixing the problems you created," I responded. "Senior analyst position, $85,000 salary, reporting directly to human resources for leadership training programs. Your job will be to help train other managers on how not to sabotage their teams." It was an offer that kept her employed, but also served as a daily reminder of the consequences of her previous decisions. "I accept," she said, without hesitation. 1 year later. Complete success. Omega Digital became GBI's most profitable subsidiary. Our revenue grew 400% in the first year, and the financial oracle system was licensed to more than 200 financial institutions in 40 countries. Forbes included me in their 30 Under 30 in Finance list, and MIT Technology Review published a cover article about how predictive artificial intelligence was transforming global banking. But the most satisfying moment came when I received an invitation to give a keynote speech at the International Financial Innovation Conference, the industry's most prestigious event. The presentation that closed the circle. 2 years ago, I began my presentation in front of 2,000 financial executives from around the world. A manager told me my work was useless garbage and deleted it in front of a room full of witnesses. Today, that same work generates more than $500 million annually in value for the global financial industry. The audience laughed, but I continued seriously. "This story isn't about revenge," I said. "It's about what happens when organizations allow personal insecurities to take precedence over technical merit. It's about the real cost of not recognizing and nurturing genuine innovation. But it's also about opportunities. Every time a company destroys an innovative project, It's creating an opportunity for its competitors to capture that value. Every time a manager sabotages a talented employee, they're giving that talent away to the competition. The system we developed at Omega Digital isn't just a technological tool. It's a demonstration of what's possible when brilliant people receive the resources and autonomy to execute their visions without political interference. I ended the presentation with a reflection I had been developing for months. Real innovation doesn't come from organizations that punish creativity and reward conformity. It comes from places that understand that the future is built by people who think differently, not those who think like everyone else. Epilogue. 5 years later today, at 32 years old, I'm CEO of a company worth $2.8 billion. The financial oracle system has processed more than $100 billion in personalized transactions. Omega Digital employs 500 people in 12 countries. Veronica still works with us, now as Director of Leadership Training. Ironically, she has become one of our most effective experts in teaching other managers how to identify and nurture innovative talent. Her personal experience with the consequences of professional sabotage has made her a passionate advocate for technical meritocracy. Roberto Mendoza, Omega Systems' former CEO, is now one of my strategic advisors. After the acquisition, he admitted that destroying the Oracle project had been the most costly mistake of his executive career. I learned that a CEO who can't identify real innovation when they see it, he told me during one of our meetings, is a CEO who doesn't deserve to lead a technology company. The final lesson. This story began with public humiliation and ended with global success. But the most important lesson isn't about revenge or poetic justice. It's about the importance of recognizing your own value, even when others don't. When Veronica destroyed my work, she didn't destroy my knowledge, my experience, or my capacity to innovate. She only destroyed my connection with a company that didn't deserve my talent. True power doesn't come from getting revenge on people who underestimate you. It comes from building something so successful that its success serves as the definitive answer to all who doubted you. Today, when young developers ask me how to handle bosses who sabotage their projects, I tell them, build something so brilliant that it's impossible to ignore. And if they ignore it anyway, find people who understand its value. Real talent always finds its way to where it's appreciated. Because in the end, the best revenge isn't the destruction of your enemies. It's building a success so great that it makes their criticism irrelevant. And that, after all, is exactly what I did.